Mr. Chairman, on behalf of Sir Ganga Ram Hospital, it is my pleasure and honor to welcome you to this function on International Women's Day. Dr. Shama Chona needs no introduction, the Padma Shri, Padma Bhushan, founder president of Tamanna Association, an educationist long associated with Delhi Public School, a person who has successfully dedicated herself in pursuit of a world of inclusion, and she is the guest of honor, and we are also blessed to have Tamanna amongst us. Other dignitaries, friends and colleagues, International Women's Day is globally celebrated annually on the 8th as a focal point in the women's rights movement. It has a very long and interesting history of origin, development and turmoil. International Women's Day gives focus to issues such as gender equality, reproductive rights and violence and abuse against women. Being a male, a lot needs to be achieved still. And I feel it is not the sole responsibility of the government to frame laws and legislation for women's rights. It is our collective responsibility to change our mindset. Only then some meaningful changes will take place. Each of us can make a difference. As we open up to transformation within ourselves, society itself will also start transforming. Fortunately, at our hospital, we have kept our ladies at a very high pedestal, as you can see. And we are very vigilant about any incidents involving women's rights or discrimination. So, once again, I welcome you to this function, personally and on behalf of Sir Ganga Ram Hospital fraternity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ganguly, for giving me this singular honor of introducing someone who everyone knows. Someone who is a very well-known educationist, not only in this city, in this country, but around the globe. Erudite, strong, loving, caring, all the good words that you would find in the dictionary would apply to her. She also happens to be my teacher and my mentor over the years. I think thousands of doctors over the years have come out of the ramparts of that school, and thank you, ma'am, for giving us such brilliant students. And apart from DPS, she also had a wider canvas. Across the entire country, she was an activist, and of course, as we know, through Tamanna, the NGO that she runs, which she conceived on the basis of the name of her daughter, Tamanna, who's here, and through the dint of her own hard work, teaching, learning how to actually mold this little child. And I've seen how passionate Madam is about that school, about the children who are there, that even when she was seriously sick and had to have medication every 3 weeks, in the morning she would go for the medication, and in the afternoon you would find her there in the school working. 1999 she was given the Padma Shri, in 2008 the Padma Bhushan. But actually, I think she lends splendor to those awards and not vice versa.
Dr. Shama Chona, our guest of honor for this function. Tamanna is here today with her mom. Dignitaries on the dais, faculty and colleagues who are here to celebrate the Women's International Day. It's really a proud moment for me to stand here and wish you all for this day. Every year there is a theme, and this year too there is a theme which says we achieve and we are successful, inspire and achieve. As you've heard, the history goes way back to 1900s when the ladies were oppressed And of course, they started having a reaction to that. That outrage started in USA, went off to Europe and Asia, and then ultimately it was recognized, and gradually over the years it is now being celebrated every year. It was the end of February, but later on it's the 8th of March that is celebrated. So heartiest congratulations to Vibha and all the team of Dr. Ganguly, and of course he's the inspiring person there, but then the ladies get their voice. So with these words, I would like to congratulate all of us, and let's celebrate and continue to strive for the best. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Tamanna Chona speaking to you live. I was born with cerebral palsy and delayed milestones, and I couldn't stand until the age of 9. And my mom, who's here at the audience, at the podium, as she told you, that for my special education, she took me to various places. And now, I'm a woman who's talking to you. And basically, this International Women's Day is a very special day, and for all of us. And basically, Women's Day is supposed to be celebrated on the 8th of March. And basically, actually, I'm a painter. I'm a story writer. I'm teaching in DPS Put small babies, and I couldn't go to school because I had my eye surgery, and I've taken leave. And basically, I had a major surgery of my eye, and because I was very brave, and actually I have written a book also. I'm Tamanna, which is to follow very soon. And basically, let's all take a pledge that the women in Delhi are not safe. Maybe in the call center or in the offices, and everywhere. And because when they drive home alone, and when they drive home alone, they're not safe. And basically, I've seen it with my eye when they're going in the cab, and their mom is calling them, "Tu kahan hai?" So the girl says, "I'm here, I'm coming, mom." And actually now, let's take a pledge that women are not alone. Let's all stand up. I think let's take a pledge. Women are not. Women are safe in Delhi, and basically they can do anything they want. And let me tell you that this day should be celebrated for all the women
women's
and with joy
with joy
and happiness.
and happiness.
Thank you so much, sir. And I would basically I have done many paintings and the paintings center
Tip center.
in IIC everywhere. And now I'm doing so many things. I'm playing also. I'm doing so many things. It's all thanks to my mom. Who? Thank you so much, mom. I owe this Women's Day to you, mom. Thank you.
Dr. Ganguly, I do not hesitate to call him my friend
Brother,
and one of my best friends.
brother.
Oh, my friend, Dr. Mahajan, my students, and all the dignitaries, distinguished dignitaries sitting on the dais. While I stand here before you, I just have one worry, and that worry is that with all the compliments, my dieting has gone to nothing, because I put on, I'm sure, at least 1 kilo with the compliments. At the outset, I have another thing to say, that we don't have a men's day, we only have women's day. Isn't that a great compliment to the women? So today is the day to laugh. Let's see how much you can laugh. Can you laugh? How hard it is to laugh. Why not? Laughter is the best medicine, and I'm nobody to suggest that to the doctors. Because doctors give you medicine, and I can only think of laughter. The more you laugh, less will be your requirement of the medicines, if I'm right, on the Women's Day. When Dr. Ganguly comes to our meetings, he has a solution for everything. And that is so scary. How can a man know so much? And I don't know how come he doesn't forget anything. I was dying to remember the names of all distinguished people on the stage, but I totally failed. So, Dr. Ganguly, that's a great, great compliment. And Dr. Mahajan, today everybody is falling sick and everybody is rushing to Mahajan imaging. And I think what he has done for the nation, now he's spreading all over. Congratulations to you, and I'm sure you will grow bigger and bigger, having one leg here. Because Ganga Ram Hospital for me is a place where I've had 2 surgeries. And when I had those surgeries, there used to be one Mr. Dharamveera, who was my most adorable, admirable individual. And he said, don't worry, if you are in Ganga Ram, sab Ganga mein dhul jayega. So I remember him today. Yes, now coming to a little more serious note and talking about disabled women, you know, there are 1 billion people in this world who are disabled. And that means almost 15% of the world population also is disabled, and out of this 300 million are girls and women. This global presence is higher in women, which is 19%, and among men 12%. Why is God so kind to men always? I've yet to question. Well, to be disabled doesn't mean that you are physically disabled. You could be disabled in 100 ways, and every day you are finding a new disability. And as we are growing, becoming an aging population in the world, the disabilities are also increasing. The question is, how can we be more social? We can be more because they're invisible. The disabilities are not always visible. And I think each one of us, if we look within, we have some disability or the other. And what is reported is not necessarily 100% the truth. In India, there was no Disability Act. Did you know that? There was an act only for the mad people. So when I got the first piece of land, my neighbors in the Vasant Vihar took me to the court. And they said, we will not allow the school for the mad people to come here. I went to the court, and of all the people, L.M. Singhvi was my lawyer. And when he stood, everybody sat down. And that's how I could continue with the possession of the land. My son at that time was only 11 years old. He stood in the land all night protecting it from somebody coming and capturing it. So it has been a rough journey, and I'm sure it's a rough journey for everybody. When we talk about the women, we realize that we've all heard of Helen Keller, right? But do we know that besides Stephen Hawking, Albert Einstein, George Washington, Helen Keller, of course, Franklin Roosevelt, Alexander Graham Bell, John Milton, Lord Byron, Lord Nelson, and of course our own Sudha Chandran, and the richest of the rich, known as Branson, they all had a disability. We don't believe it, but it is the truth. So disability, first of all, is not a disease. We have to stop looking at those who are disabled to be firstly bad, and secondly that they cannot do most of the things that you and I can do. I have a living example. I mean, I am standing here before you not because of my achievements, but because of having given birth to Tamanna. I owe everything that I am today because of her birth. I think God also has a scheme, and we don't understand that scheme till we realize that every day, every single moment, there is someone who is planning your life. I got a beautiful message just before Tamanna was operated recently for her eyes. She was losing her eyesight. And that said, your mind cannot hold two things. It cannot be divided. You can either have faith or you can have worry. So on Women's Day, I would like you all to think about it. You will laugh a lot if you trust. Am I right? Let us take a pledge on Women's Day. Stop worrying and start trusting, man. No one has a right to be unhappy. We all have a right to be happy. Of course, the ministries, the government, the politicians, they're announcing a lot of projects, they're announcing a lot of schemes for women, for disabled women, but we need only one thing. And that one thing is love. We just lit the lamp, right? And I always say, ज्योत से ज्योत जलाते चलो, प्यार की गंगा बहाते चलो. अगर हम प्यार की गंगा बहाते रहेंगे और वो प्यार की गंगा मेरी डिसेबल्ड लड़कियों के लिए भी होगी, लड़कों के लिए भी होगी, तो ये दुनिया इतनी सुंदर, इतनी सुहावनी, इतनी प्यारी, और आप उतने ही खुश होंगे जितनी कि मैं खुश हूँ. बार बार मुझे एक ही बात याद आती है कि जो डिसेबल्ड वुमेन की फ्लाइट है वो बहुत नाजुक है. तमन्ना से हमने 4 लड़कियों के विवाह किए, ठीक है, आज चारों लौट के आ रहे हैं. There is so much of abuse in their lives. They have no way to protect themselves. I have a girl, she is both, she cannot speak and she cannot hear, right? The other day, there was a little teasing in the bus and she could cry. The teacher in charge couldn't understand because there was no way she could have really expressed that she is being troubled. So now we've started giving her a bell to protect herself, and I think we need to do that for all of them everywhere. I'm very happy that for the physically disabled there are more ramps now. There are lifts, but they get stuck in the lifts also. Government is doing a lot, but we as women, we as citizens of this nation need to do much more. What you see is not everything, neither for the women nor for the disabled women. I know women have reached high places in our country, Prime Minister, President, whatever. But you know what is the plight of a woman inside the house? We are working women. We are doctors. We are doctorates. But the woman inside the 4 walls of her house still has to tell her husband, can I go and work? He is still the master of the house. We have to break that barrier. I don't know how many of you experience that. You're a mother, you're a daughter, you're a daughter-in-law, you're a cook, you're a cleaner, you're a driver, you're everything. So I think the world did the right thing to create a Women's Day where we could celebrate who we are. We are celebrating that but for women, there would be no world. Am I right? All the men who boast of running the home, give them just 3-4 days to do so. I think they would be going crazy. We have lots of beliefs as far as the handicapped are concerned, women in mind. We think when Tamanna was very little, I had to take her from Biju Road to Pune for her physio, speech, etc. therapy. And we could only afford second class. And when we used to sit there, all the other women in the compartment would sit away. And they said, क्या ये छुआछूत की बीमारी है? शायद मैडम आपकी कोई कर्म बहुत खराब है. They would tell me, आप ना झाड़ू अपने ऊपर उठाइए. They would tell me, आप उस दरगाह में जाइए, उस टेम्पल में जाइए. अब धीरे-धीरे people are understanding what brain damage is. Here today, I am feeling one among so many doctors. So many doctors. What can I say to you about brain damage and cerebral palsy and autism? You know much more than me. But one thing that you all need to know is that disability is not a choice to be had. This is not a result of your karmas. This is something which is medical, and you, the doctors, must be congratulated for all the work you are doing to make this world a better place to live in. My heartiest congratulations to you for all that you do to improve the handicap, to improve the disability and the impairment. Sometimes, as all of us sit and worry, I worry too. What after me? I think that is the biggest worry of every mother, father with a child who is different and special. To my girl now will probably be a challenge to others. So, if she can be what she is, then the whole world can. She'd probably tell you something about herself.
Good evening, all the dignitaries on the dais, off the dais, friends and colleagues. So much said about disabilities, and unfortunately I was not aware that we would not have a slide presentation. So I made with great zest very beautiful slides for this function. However, I would just speak them out to you. And the first thing is, I wondered, why did Dr. Ganguly ever send an invitation to me to speak? What is there that I do for disabled people in IVF? And then when I went through text, I found out that it is the 5th disability in humans. Infertility is the 5th disability in humans described in the whole book of disabilities. So really we are dealing with whom we try to treat, and in that process when we do IVF, then Dr. Ganguly thought there was a lot of psychosocial impact of IVF also. The good side, yes, they get children, but then the bad side also, where there could be a lot of psychological and social stress. Bible chapter 1, 28 para is be fruitful, multiply and replenish the earth. This is how we all came into our being. But then who was the social outcast? The woman. In our country, look at the old stories, all the women who could not bear children had to be outcast. And humans have regarded infertility as a supreme curse, and prayer remained their principal resort for treatment until they began to understand the physiology behind it. Look at the mythological stories, Nag Devta ya Suraj Devta. Women had to go to them and then they were blessed with a child. So just guess who was infertile, the woman or the man? So all the devtas made these women fertile, and then slowly our physiology started saying that both are equally responsible. And as I told you, infertility is the 5th most serious disability in the world. So having said that, I will not come to IVF straight away. First, I would like to sort of tell you, infertility has a lot of social impact and psychological impact. Relationships suffer in social impact. The husband, wife, spouse, partner, they are at stake. With friends and family, such couples don't want to visit family functions, especially those where there are pregnant women or there are children. And psychological impact is tremendous. Of being infertile, I'm not talking about IVF right now. Individuals who once suddenly come to know that they are not being able to conceive, and when they visit a doctor and they find that there is a problem and they learn that it's not easy for them to conceive, it is a whole lot world changes for them. Typical reactions include shock, grief, depression, anger, frustration, everything. And this also leads to sexual dysfunction, which further on to their infertility problem. So the pages of history turned and turned and turned, and we were looking for fertility solutions, and then was the birth of baby Louis Brown, the world's first IVF baby in 1978. This revolutionized the whole reproductive world for human race. where life was created outside the human body in a test tube. And since then, 45 years have gone, almost 6 to 7 million babies are born out of IVF, and still in that Cambridgeshire fertility clinic, a bell jar sits on top of a jar where the first IVF baby of the world had spent few hours of her life there before she became baby Louis Brown and is now a mother of 2. But then in this story of IVF, I would just want to bring one more thing to your notice. After that, another baby was born in the UK a year later, then in Australia, then many more in US, and then India's first IVF baby was born as baby Harsha in 1986. But in between all this, one baby was lost. And that baby was born way back in 1978 when the first IVF baby of the world was born. That is baby Durga, alias Kanupriya, born in Bengal by the efforts of Dr. Subhash Mukhopadhyay. Now imagine what happened. The whole world celebrated the birth of Louis Brown. What happened to this baby of Subhash Mukhopadhyay? Where did this baby get lost? He was the first physician to create a test tube baby. Just 56 days after the first IVF baby of the world was born. But he committed suicide 1.5 years later. Why? Because he was ridiculed by our own bureaucrats, by our scientists, by his colleagues, by the Bengal Gynae Society, that what untruthful rubbish is this man talking? He was so disheartened that he committed suicide in his residence. Who came to his rescue? The Bollywood, as usual. What was it? Ek Doctor Ki Maut. It was based on his life. This movie was made in 1990. Similarly, like we have Jessica, No One Killed Jessica, or Talwar. All these movies have come out to rescue these unknown suicides of people where we do not know really what happened. Anyways, his whole attempt was recognized 21 years later, and his discovery has now come into place where it should have been 21 years after his death. And this was by whom? Professor T.C. Anand Kumar, the one who is credited by India's first test tube baby of Bombay with Dr. The Bombay lady, what is her name? Indira Hinduja. So just imagine, he gave away his title of having created India's first baby to Subhash Mukhopadhyay when he discovered that he was the right man. His handwritten notes showed all the technology was absolutely correct how he created baby. So 1978 was a turning point for the whole world. Louis Brown in the west, and in the east was Kanupriya baby Durga. Having said that, use of IVF started to expand. And why did it expand? Because there was awareness, there was knowledge, availability, acceptance, true rise in incidence of infertility and advancement of technology. And there was another thing which came up, intolerance to infertility. Nowadays, in our new world, girls and boys are married for 8 years, 10 years. They don't plan any child. They use strong contraceptives. And then when they try for 3 months and they don't get pregnant, they are all sitting in IVF clinics saying that we want a baby and we want quick because it's spoiling our planning for future. If we don't have a baby now, then next year I have to do this, and after that I have to do something else. I want a baby now. So intolerance to infertility has become a very, very big problem, especially in the urban world. Especially on Women's Day, I want to bring this forth, that don't fight with nature so much. Just let things happen on their own. Age is very, very important. And past IVF was like confidential. Don't tell anyone that this baby is IVF. Today, all couples walk in hand to IVF clinic and say, I have come for IVF. Don't investigate me. Don't do anything. Just do IVF for me. This is what is happening today. So with all the other issues which IVF came with, everything comes with a price, whether it is IVF or it is something else. So there were affordability, financial issues, there were complications, health concerns, there was use and misuse of the technology. and psychosocial issues. So I'll come to the psychosocial issues now, because those who have a baby are very happy. Yes, they do have psychological issues because they are overprotective about these babies. But then those who do not, why is it so? Because there is denial to failure. 1 in 6 couples present with infertility. 1 in 20 will never conceive with IVF or anything else. And this reality has to be pushed into the mind of these young couples. Low success rate. IVF still has a low success rate. Most of the clinics gives a success rate of 30-35%. 100 couples going through IVF, 30 getting pregnant. Out of that, miscarriages, everything would come across. So unrealistic high expectation is another problem, that when they walk in, they feel IVF is going to sort out everything. It does not. Emotional drain happens because naturally you go through a cycle, then another cycle, you go from one center to another center, and when you don't conceive, then you get very, very, very depressed. It has psychosexual impact, it has psychological impact, it impacts work and everything. On the other hand is commercialization of IVF. The service providers have saying, we will provide embryos at your doorstep. And what are the service takers wanting? They are wanting that they book for IVF today and next morning a baby crawls out of their bed. So this is the expectation, and this is what our commercialization is providing. Taboo is still there, though much less than what it was in the 1990s when we started IVF. Couples did not, even doctors from our hospital have never declared that they had a baby with IVF. This is the educated class. What do we talk about those who are less privileged in education than us and they have a baby through IVF? Mother-in-law, father-in-law should never know in their lifetimes that this baby was conceived through IVF because of a lot of myths which surround it, that maybe someone else's gametes are being used or things like that, whereas nothing like this happens in IVF. And then came in the third party reproduction, and that had the greatest impact on the psyche of a woman, man and the couple. Having to change your sperm, and you always look at the child and feel, this is not mine. Same way with the woman, she has a less speech. Thanks to Women's Day, that maybe she has a greater speech and tomorrow says, I don't want donor eggs. I would want to have a IVF baby with my own eggs only. But it has a lot of psychological impact. Say, what about the embryo? It is like you adopting a child. If you're not open to adopting a child, how can you be open to adopting an embryo? But people are, because they are only afraid of the society. All they want is to prove to the society that the wife has born a child. From where did the sperm come? Where did the egg come? How did the embryo form? That's not their concern. Having said that, if 1 out of the 2 wants to stop treatment, then also there's a lot of sexual discord, psychological discrepancies between a couple. They go through a very turbulent lifetime. The wife comes and says, I want to continue, my husband is saying no, or it is vice versa. We all should be able to help them and help them to decide when to stop treatment. Enough is enough. Having said that, I would come at last to the ART law of India, which was made in December 2021. Enacted in 22 February, and after that a lot of things have been straightened out. It took care of couples undergoing IVF, at least no advertisement allowed. The clinics have to be accredited with proper staff, proper learning of the staff, equipment should be accredited, discharge slip should be given, which is all a grey area in IVF till now. So a lot of things are coming into place, and I'm sure as time comes in, we will reduce the psychological and social burden both of women who go through IVF and do not succeed. So with this, on Women's Day, I congratulate everyone for coming here, attending to all what we had to say, and Dr. Ganguly especially for awakening this thought in me that infertility is a psychological disorder, and when I read, I found that it was such an important psychological burden in patients. Thank you very much.
The topic which Dr. Ganguly suggested was about neurological disabilities. and I added the title called Challenges and Opportunities. As we know that neurological disabilities can start from the birth or even before to the death almost. So the entire lifetime one could get some illness or the other which is leaving some mark of its own as a disability. Now, the World Health Organization has defined this aspect disability as change in the structure, function, or mental thinking. Three items have to be considered. The structure could change, the function could change, or the way the mental makeup could change. Now, what is the kind of figures we have in the world? About 1.3 billion people are supposed to be suffering from neurological, all kinds of disabilities, out of which the major portion is by neurology disorders. And does it affect all ethnic groups, all genders? Yes. It's important to recognize that independent of the socio-economic structure or ethnicity, you can get neurological disabilities. What may cause neurological disability? The most common thing which is now recognized is stroke. I think in major studies done in states in India, published in Lancet a few years ago, it shows that the stroke is the commonest disorder which can give rise to a disability. And then the next one is headache, migraine. Now, you see, we were talking about women and men getting diseases of different types, while all other neurological disorders are more prevalent in the men, but few are more in the women, like migraine, headache, and dementia. I was shocked when I read about it. Women are more prone to dementia. I mean, we have to be watching out that. So, apart from these 2 or 3 disorders, most of them occur in men. Now, what is a disability? A person who was able to do some action earlier cannot do that. Whether it is a locomotor disturbance like walking, standing up, doing the activities of daily living, that's locomotor. Then it could be problems of vision, hearing, dementia, and then some mental or behavioral aspects. So if you take all these, I'm sure many people in the audience may know some friends, relatives, or acquaintances who have neurological disability. It is so common that I don't think enough has been done to address these issues. Can we do something about it in prevention? Yes, possibly by good health care at the primary, secondary level. Some of the defects could be controlled or prevented. But there are genetic disorders like muscular dystrophy, spinal muscular atrophies, and variety of disorders which need much more investigation. Okay, so these are the situations, the challenges. What opportunities? How do we go about it? Important thing is to recognize first that a disabled person is not stigmatized. Many people laugh at a person who had a defect, either any of these spheres, but that makes them much more inhibited to come out. Most important is that they should have a goal, a life goal. What is to be done? Well, I was this before the disability, now what I want to become. Can I revert back completely or no? Now, in strokes, for example, there are 2 types of disabilities. One is the static type. That is, an acute onset occurs, like a stroke or a bleed or traumatic injury to the brain or spinal cord, which is left with a deficit. Over the time, this may improve, maybe not 100%, but making the person mobile and do their activities. So a static disability, we have to deal in a different way. There are other diseases which I think Ish mentioned about amyotrophic lateral sclerosis or motor neuron disease, which I have been working on for last more than 40 years. That is a progressive neurodegenerative disorder, comes slightly in the older age group, not that it cannot come in the younger. It may start with weakness, twitching of the muscles in the limbs, hands and legs, later on swallowing difficulty, speaking difficulty, breathing. Can you just imagine the type of patients I see in fairly advanced after 2 to 3 years, that they are not able to turn even the side in the bed. They cannot swallow, they cannot speak, they cannot move their hands and legs. They have to be turned. As some patient told me, madam, if I am itching at the back, I can't even scratch. So that is the type of disorder which is, unfortunately, as of today, it's fatal. Many people die within 3 to 5 years, almost 50%. Few lucky ones live. Unfortunately, as of now, there is no curative or preventive treatment or anything to even slow down. So we have to depend on a lot of these support systems. Now, that brings us to physiotherapy or rehabilitation. Now, what does rehabilitation mean? That putting back the person into their own sphere of activity. So this requires a team, a rehabilitation team, which is a physiotherapist, speech therapist, a psychologist, and of course a neurologist and an occupational therapist. Occupational therapist activates the person to go back to their original type of work. Now, how does this physiotherapy and all these techniques work? I've always wondered that whatever the tissue is undamaged, that is capitalized at this. That is, we form fresh neural circuits and what is called as the neuroplasticity. That means you can change the functions of the brain, of whatever it is, increase the metabolism. This is a preserved tissue. I mean, the damaged tissue, which is permanent, cannot be changed. But what is in the reserve can be improved. Now, there are different types apart from the regular physiotherapy we know. Some research has been done called the aquatic physiotherapy. That is, the people are put inside the water, maybe a swimming pool or you make a bath like, and then they find that the muscle weakness improves a lot with this. That is because the cardiac output changes and more blood is sent to the muscles. This aquatherapy or the water therapy has been used extensively for many disorders, which I don't think we have. I have heard only about 1 or 2 places having this. I had a patient of Wilson's disease. The boy could not stand. They were from periphery, and I told the parents, can you make it like a tub and make him stand? They were very good. They said, we will use a cement thing and made, the old-fashioned houses had the water storage. So they made that, they made the child stand, and at least as long as the child was alive, for 4 to 5 years, he was able to stand, which he could not do with the regular physiotherapy. So this is one new concept which may be introduced, and across the country, physiotherapy departments may develop this. Next is music therapy. I don't know how many are you aware that in diseases like Parkinson's disease, music has been known to help a lot because music stimulates certain parts of the brain called the midbrain, the brainstem, and establishes a new circuits. So these are little unusual, but there are a lot of literature on both the aquatherapy and music therapy. Now this requires a team. Do we have, and then the main question is, can you reach out to all the people? Even in big cities, we don't have enough of these teams working in rehabilitation, that is including all speech therapy, psychologists and everything. What can we do about it? I would like to give the example of state of Karnataka, which the Niti Aayog identifies to do what is called Brain Health Project. It's a multi-crore project funded by government of Karnataka, and NIMHANS is leading that. So I just spoke to the person and got a lot of information. The brain health clinics are established in all the districts of Karnataka, which are 31 districts, plus city of Bangalore. What do they have? They have all necessary things for diagnosis, treatment of neurological disorders, most important ones. They have not left only for the treatment. They have also have some facilities for diagnosis, not just the treatment, but including rehabilitation physiotherapy. They are trying to get psychologists and speech therapists. It's already 2 years on, 1 more year, and they'll be submitting the report to WHO. It might become a national program. So these are called the brain health clinics. I was very impressed with this concept. Then what did the world do about this? Every year on 22nd of June from 2014, we celebrate what is called as the Brain Day. That is, many organizations which are associated with World Federation of Neurology across the world celebrate it. Their attention is focused on neurological disorders which can involve human beings, and how do you do it? How do we go about it? So last year, the 2023 Brain Day, the focus was on neurorehabilitation. The World Federation of Neurology, World Health Organization, World Federation of Neurorehabilitation, they all came together and say that we are with you to help the disabled. And they also mentioned that we should integrate the healthcare with rehabilitation. You know, in big hospitals like Ganga Ram, we have both the things. But if you go into the district level, all the primary health centers, we don't have anything. So these are very important issues. These are the opportunities. And I understand under the government of India, there is a department called Empowerment of Disabled People, and it is called the Divyagyan. That word is used. And there they are linking up with CSIR laboratories to do research more on the disabilities, and also with the Artificial Limb Manufacturing Corporation of India, LIMCO it is called, to make all the splints and variety of things. You know, there are very advanced technology today, unlike what we just had with some calipers or splints, many things can be done. So is there a future? Can we think of something more? When I deal with motor neuron disease patients, there are people who cannot speak, who cannot communicate, who cannot write. What do we do for such people? I have few scientists who have got this illness. They have used what is called as the brain-computer interface. It's fantastic. Many people have heard about Stephen Hawking and how his little twitch of the cheek could activate the computer and he could guide the PhD students and all that. So I have a couple of scientists. One is in Delhi, one is in Chennai. They are highly intelligent people, technology oriented, and they have developed this brain-computer interface. You know, they write papers, they can talk to people, but you need a team here, a neuroscientist, an IT professional, and a technologist. I'm sure the day is not far away where many people who have speech disorders and cannot write or say something can be done. You also must have heard that you can do stimulations of the spinal cord and activate movement. And recently, all in the news is the Neurolink. You put a brain chip and activate it through even your thought process and say, I want to move my right hand, and there the right hand moves. It is at the moment in a scientific fiction, but I think it will become something, you know, which every day we'll say maybe 10 years, 20 years later. So while disabilities make us feel sad and depressed, but looking at the opportunities which have really rapidly developed, we didn't see many of them when I was a medical student or doing DM neurology. In the last 10 to 20 years, we have this. But there is one important question, issue of affordability. When you go into simple wheelchair, it is cheap. But when you want something more, you want a better appliances, they become cost. Actually, there is a support group of motor neuron disease where I am the advisor. We are trying to see what is the cost involved in maintaining a patient, looking at the breathing, the swallowing, and the walking about, and whether many of these things can be subsidized with the government of India. We are trying to do that. And many of these disorders like multiple sclerosis, strokes, and demyelinating disorders, they all have support groups. The support group on ALS is doing fantastic work in Delhi. They have more than 600 patients on their records, and they teach each other how do they tackle this. The families are taught, the patients are taught. So much is being done, and I'm sure many more things will develop. And it's my tribute to all the disabled people. They are warriors who have fought with their disability and went back to their original jobs or original thing. You have seen Para-Olympics and so on. So it's not a tough job. It is with lot of determination and consistency. It's a lifetime thing one should do. So my tribute to all the disabled, neurologically and otherwise, in the country. Thank you.
5 million women at the top. Look at United States, they consider themselves so many presidents, not a single woman. And I happened to be there when Hillary Clinton was, and the amount of rubbish I used to hear from the white Americans against her. So I think we should celebrate. We are always very lucky in this country that we are being respected. And it's not necessary that you are an achiever if you reach somebody at the top. Every one of us is an achiever in our own rights.